Hello everyone. Today is Tuesday, May 12, 2026. A friend asked me, what is going on? I am not a big prophet, but I predicted that by the end of the year, gold prices would multiply by 1.5 and oil prices would be divided by 1.5. Then, a couple of days ago, news came out that Indian Prime Minister Modi called on Indians to stop buying gold. The friend asked me, if things are like this, will gold prices fall? Because many people are no longer buying, and India is a very large populous country. I think there will definitely volatility. This belongs to the category of black swan events. Who would have expected the Indian Prime Minister to suddenly come out and call for this? It can be considered a black swan event that appeared suddenly. However, I think the general trend, because we are predicting a trend, should remain unchanged. Therefore, I basically maintain my judgment. Why did Modi do this? It is like this. Prime Minister Modi is calling on Indians to tighten their belts. India's economy is currently in very bad shape, which is also due to the oil crisis he wants them. For example, to stop driving private cars and take public transportation, which allows many people to use them together and saves fuel. He also wants people to work from home instead of going to the office, because going to the office means using air conditioning and so on. He also called for reducing overseas travel and stopping gold purchases. Why? Because when you travel abroad or buy gold, it affects foreign exchange. By doing this, they can save on fossil fuels and also preserve India's foreign exchange reserves. Their foreign exchange reserves are reaching the bottom and are in trouble. As I have said before, do you know what India's biggest source of foreign exchange is? It is not selling goods. India's largest source of foreign exchange is Indian expatriate workers. A group of Indian laborers goes abroad to work, for example, to the United States or Canada, and after they earn money, they send the foreign currency back to India. That is India's biggest source of foreign exchange. So, that is one of India's problems. It cannot earn money itself. Regarding India, I mentioned in the last discussion about the book Xinxian New Virtues by Di Tongsheng, during the power struggle, they talked about the prologue, and they covered prologues 1, 2, and 3. After I finished that, I realized completely that India has no chance at all. The so-called blowing of the trumpet that India will replace China is completely impossible. India has no chance. You will understand completely after reading that. Right? Look at India. It once had a few opportunities to develop slightly, but it couldn't grasp them at all. For example, in 2022, when the Russia-Ukraine war broke out, after the war started, Russia was kicked out of the global financial system. After being kicked out, Russia had no other choice but to sell oil to India. After selling a barrel of oil to India, they initially agreed to settle the trade in Indian rupees. After the settlement, when Russia wanted to use the rupees to buy things, right? Wouldn't that have been the best time? You bought their oil since India bought Russian oil. Didn't you make money? You naturally bought it. That year, the biggest oil family in India earned 200 billion USD in 2022. Profit. Just the profit was 200 billion USD. Right? So you used rupees to buy their oil and then sold it abroad, right? You bought it with rupees, but sold it for foreign currency. How much more money could you have earned? Then, you could have forced them to take the rupees and come back to buy your goods, which could have driven your economy. That was a great opportunity. But it couldn't be driven. Why? Because India's own domestic products either have poor quality or are too expensive. Russia didn't want to buy them anyway. So, under these circumstances, what should have been done? The government should have stepped in to provide subsidies or tax rebates. You sell to Russia, and I will give you a tax rebate. Even if the quality is poor, if it is sold cheaply enough, Russia might have bought it. Wouldn't that have driven India's economic development? But being a democratic country, they couldn't do that. You see, they couldn't do it. Why? Because the government had no money, so they couldn't subsidize it. Because, unfortunately, the money earned from Russia's crude oil did not enter the national treasury. It went to India's largest oil family. So India's problem is that the chaebols conglomerates control India, and the government has no way to help India develop, because in this democratic country, the government does not have that much power. After those few big chaebols took control, they only thought of themselves, their own families, and their fat sons. Remember the wedding of the fat son of the Indian family? They started from January and kept going until September. They spent 4 billion or maybe 40 billion USD, I forgot, but it was all calculated in the billions of USD for the wedding. After all that, in China, what wealthy person would dare to do that? That would cause public outrage, right? But do you see India having any way to handle this? Number at the formal wedding ceremony. Indian Prime Minister Modi actually went and gave his personal blessings to the newlyweds. You know how that turned out, right? I mean, such a great opportunity. During the Russia-Ukraine war, you could have said the country should have earned a sum of money and filled the national treasury. That 200 billion USD, if it hadn't been earned by that Indian family, but had gone into India's foreign exchange reserves, if it had gone into the national treasury, into the reserves, India's foreign exchange reserves would have increased by hundreds of billions, right? But it was earned by that big family, so it cannot be counted as the country's, right? Then, they also couldn't subsidize their own manufacturing industry. Logically, they could have taken that 200 billion USD to subsidize their own manufacturing, letting the industry earn money and sell to Russia, which would have kept the cycle going, right? But it couldn't turn. And eventually, it led to Russia no longer accepting rupees. There was no other way. In the end, India was forced by Russia to use the renminbi for settlement, using the renminbi for settlement. Then you have to go and earn the renminbi. How are you going to earn that renminbi? You understand, right? What are you selling to China? Is the Chinese renminbi easy to earn? China mainly sells things to you. When would they ever want to buy your things, right? So, that great opportunity, now that opportunity simply cannot be used. This is India's biggest problem, because, as we often joke, what does India need now? Does India need democracy? India doesn't need a damn bit of democracy. India currently needs autocracy. India needs a strong man in government to completely kick out this democracy. Kick it away, kick it into the air. Don't even hold elections. Get a strong political figure, return completely to an autocratic system, engage in life, long tenure, and then start dealing with the chaebols. See who should be beheaded. Behead them? Who should be exiled? Exile them. Who should get out? Get them out. Otherwise, if they run away, make them go bankrupt, raiding their homes, taking their assets, and putting the chaebols' money into India's national treasury. Then, take that money out and start subsidizing the ordinary people, subsidizing the manufacturing industry of the ordinary people. That is India's opportunity, but does India have that opportunity now? Not even the slightest bit of opportunity, so engaging in these things now is useless. It is useless. You know, even if you go that route, India's Modi, you can't say he is not a strong man. Modi is also a strong political figure, also there, tearing down the east wall to mend the west wall, right? A clever housewife cannot cook without rice. But he is also just there. It is just protecting the peace, just dealing with it. But after dealing with it for a long time, the little money they managed to earn, who did it all go to? It all went to those big families, big chaebols. Is it useful for the country? Is it useful for the people? It is useless, you know? And what do those big families and big chaebols do? I don't know. They take a wife and spend billions. I don't know. Anyway, India's current situation is this kind of situation, and then foreign investors are withdrawing on a massive scale because once you do things this way, everyone understands, right? Since your foreign exchange is insufficient, and you need to import energy and need to buy foreign exchange, what are you going to do that will inevitably cause your own national currency to depreciate because you need foreign exchange? Right? You urgently need foreign exchange, your currency depreciates, and the foreign currency will relatively appreciate against your currency. Right? So foreign investors see this, and what do? They hurry to sell their rupees and exchange them for foreign currency to get out. Get out. Get out. Right? So foreign investment is withdrawing on a massive scale. In the past 2 months, foreign investors have withdrawn 200 billion rupees from the Indian stock market. This year has become the year with the most severe foreign capital outflow from the Indian market since it opened to overseas investment in 1994. This is also the problem. In a democratic country, and you have foreign capital entering, the foreign capital enters when you are popular, sharing the feast with you. But once you have a problem, the foreign capital runs away immediately. You understand, right? Between this letting in and taking out, aren't your assets being looted, you know, right? Why don't you set up a financial firewall? Why can't you protect your own financial industry? You are doing this to your financial industry right now, right? When the economy is good, they come over to bottom, fish, and when the economy is bad, they sell and run away, right? Is there anyone considering your country, considering your people, considering your economy? Forget about the country and the people. What about your own economy? What about your stock market? You know, right? You are now completely, of course, India also says, I don't have management, I want to manage. But after that, the US says, I'll do financial control, and then trade is not free, so I have to sanction you. And it goes on like that, right? Anyway, it is just that set of tactics from the West. So, we say, that set of tactics from the West is the Kill You 3000 series. Ray Dalio is also playing that game, right? Whoever tries to develop, whoever trusts them will die. Right? So there is no way looking further. The total shareholding ratio of foreign investors in the Indian stock market has dropped to its lowest point in 14 years. Foreign capital is flowing out in large quantities. Then, a large amount of capital began to flow in. From India. Where is it going? It's flowing to South Korea and Taiwan's semiconductor giants. And India currently doesn't see any possibility of participating in this AI artificial intelligence cycle. This wave of a big market trend, a big cycle, right? Many countries, as long as they are related to this, can all speculate on a wave, right? Including DeepSeek from Liang Wenfeng. It seems like they are going to have an IPO or something recently, going to go public, and their valuation is already hundreds of billions of USD. Of course, truthfully, if it were a Chinese enterprise, DeepSeek, if it were an American company, they would be adding another zero at the end right now. That wouldn't be 30 or 40 billion USD, it would be 300 or 400 billion USD. You know? But because it is a Chinese enterprise, but India, do you have any opportunity to participate in this? You don't see any. There is nothing related to AI. Don't talk about core AI like DeepSeek. Even the basics. Even if you are not good at that, right? India says, I have this, I have that, I have water. Because, you know, when you build data centers, sometimes they need water cooling, right? I have water. But the water might be a bit polluted, right? I am not afraid of pollution. I'll take the land, and you guys build data centers here, and I'll provide you with electricity, provide these basic facilities. Do you have them? They don't? They have nothing? There is no infrastructure, you know, right? You want to provide electricity in many places, dare you. In those big cities like New Delhi, the lights are bright, but in some small places, in those states, right, their electricity usage is also very tight. They have power outages constantly. The power supply also has problems. Their entire infrastructure is problematic. The infrastructure is not enough. Actually, they need to develop infrastructure on a large scale. If your infrastructure is not enough, your electricity is not enough, you can't build data centers there. Right? You could have engaged in virtual currency back then. But virtual currency also consumes electricity. You know? Then you could have tried to build power plants. You can't build them either because it's a democratic country, right? There is no power, let private individuals build them. There are many problems with private individuals building them, you know? So the problem is, right here, that is why I often jokingly say, those who say India will replace China are idiots. Because if you really look at it, you will find that you can't see even a single point of opportunity, not even a 1 in 10,000 chance. The problems are just too many. You know, AI, from top to bottom, what do you have? Storage, chips, electricity, you have nothing. Whether it is upstream, downstream, or any stage, you have nothing. So you can't participate. You can't participate in this wave of the market at all. So foreign investors are all running away. Since March 2025, the retail shareholding ratio in the Indian stock market has also dropped by 9%. Foreign investors are running, and their own retail investors are also running. It mainly relies on India's local mutual funds, so their holdings have reached a record high, but their mutual funds also have many retail investors. But this just shows that retail investors have no confidence in you. So why is everyone going to buy gold? You know, this is to say, it's because they have no confidence in the stock market, no confidence in the economy, and no confidence in their own currency. You know, everyone is buying gold. Why are so many people buying gold? It is because they are worried that the rupee will depreciate. If I buy gold now, when gold appreciates in the future, I will make money. If I hold on to rupees, I will lose money. Right? And buying real estate. They have no confidence in that either. You know, right? In India, you can't see anything that can lead to, say, making money. It's just me coming here to counter inflation. Because if your currency depreciates, doesn't that cause severe inflation? So in India, for ordinary people, it seems that the only thing that can counter inflation is gold. Of course, the US dollar is also fine, but if you want to buy US dollars, the problem is that you are lacking foreign exchange. If you have that many US dollars, you can buy them, but that is not good, right? Of course. Of course. Of course it's better to earn US dollars for Indian people, right? When Indian people go out to work, they want US dollars, not rupees, right? Then you tell me whoever you do business with, they also want US dollars, not rupees. If you do business with Chinese people, you can ask for rupees and not US dollars, right? But that's absurd, right? So that is that. So there is no way, so that is the situation. So how to see it? India's two largest regular gold retailers, Titan and Kalyan Jewellers, just announced their strongest performance in history. This Titan is under the Tata Group, right? Their revenue in the last quarter grew by 46%, and net profit grew by 35% year-on-year for Kalyan Jewellers. Net profit grew by 100%, and revenue grew by 66%. So of course, what is the problem? It's that the stock market is not good, foreign capital is running away, the rupee is depreciating, so everyone is rushing to buy gold. So you can see the two largest regular gold retailers have made big money, right? In fact, anyone in India linked to gold is making money. What does that show? It shows that in the past few months, Indian retail investors have been buying gold in large quantities. So these gold retailers are making money, right? Well, now there is a problem. When you buy gold, are you using rupees to buy it? Actually, no, they think they are, but they are not. In reality, you are first taking the rupee and exchanging it for something. Exchanging it for US dollars. Exchanging it for foreign currency, or euros. Anyway, exchanging it for foreign currency. And then taking the foreign currency to buy gold. Do you understand what I mean? And this gold is bought from abroad and brought in. But since you are buying a lot of it abroad, what does that lead to? It leads to your actual foreign exchange reserves decreasing. You understand this logic, right? So Modi said, you guys, stop buying, our foreign exchange is too tight. If you keep buying wildly like this, because when you buy wildly like this, what does it lead to? First, gold appreciates. And another thing, the foreign currency appreciates. If you buy US dollars, the US dollar appreciates. So what is depreciating? Only the rupee is depreciating, right? So, well, now, if India wants to counter this, because the drastic depreciation of your national currency is bad for your own economy, right? If you want to counter by adjusting the economy, then you have to adjust in the foreign exchange market. How do you adjust? You can only sell us dollars to buy your own rupee, you understand, right? But do you have that many US dollars? Doesn't this become taking from the East to mend the West? You understand, right? So, the whole path, the logic of this sequence, once you understand it, you will find that this is not good. This is a vicious cycle, right? A vicious cycle. So, but there is one problem. After Modi called for it, will the Indian people listen, right? Of course, the government might have certain means to stop them from entering. Of course, India is still a democratic country. Does the government have this kind of forced means? Can they do it legally? I don't know, right? That's why you look at India's situation and you understand Japan. After the Plaza Accord, Japan had an economic collapse and lost 30 years. Why? It is because under that situation, the whole country didn't have a backbone. No one had the final say, The chaebols had the chaebols' ideas, the gold retailers, and the gold merchants had their ideas. The retail investors had the retail investors' ideas, the big banks had the big banks' ideas, the government had the government's ideas, the central government had the central government's ideas, and the local governments had the local government's ideas. Everyone could not unify their opinions. They couldn't work together. So Japan eventually, many of these policies and methods in the end were just tearing each other down. Actually, it was just everyone had their own ideas, tearing each other down. That's why Japan's economy couldn't recover for 20 or 30 years. So India is a developing country when you are being harvested by others. To be honest, I feel that looking at it now, autocracy might be much stronger than democracy. Under the current situation of democracy, if Japan had been autocratic back then, with someone having the final say, everyone else would have had to shut up, listen to me, and said, I am shouting 1, 2, 1, and you have to move in step with me. Maybe it would have been very miserable, but maybe it wouldn't have been that miserable. India's current situation is also, Modi currently doesn't have that much power. There is no way. He is, after all, in a democratic country, so he needs elections. So, of course, some people say, will this cause gold to fall? About the national character of the Indian people, I have not been there. I don't know much about India. I don't know about you. You have been to India for a few days to travel, and you have a very good understanding of that country. Haha. I don't know who among you has been there to travel for a few days. So you guys tell me, you guys think the Indian people will listen to Modi? Look, in the 90s, at the end of the 90s, of course, during the Asian financial crisis, South Korea had a problem. Of course, the South Korean government called for the people to do what? The government wanted gold, called on the people to sell gold to the government, and really, many South Korean people sold gold to the government to save the country. That is the South Korean national character. This is something that other countries can't do. Back then, to save money, Japan expanded its military. Many people ran to Southeast Asia to sell silver, fragrant movies, sold silver, made money, and brought the foreign currency back to let the Japanese people buy weapons. You know, this is the national character of Japan and South Korea. They South Koreans can really do this, sacrifice and devote themselves for the sake of the country. Then can India do it now? I don't know. And I don't dare to say either. Let's wait and see. I think through this incident, it is a very good observation point for the Indian national character. But as far as I know, the internal part of India is actually not harmonious. They fight each other to the death between various religious sects. Not this heart, it's not very united, of course. India became a country because it was originally set up by the British. Actually, if it weren't for the British setting it up there, I see India as very difficult to handle between them. There is such deep hatred they can kill each other at any moment. They can't form a country, you know? So that is why you look at Gao Zhikai once threatened India, saying don't mess with China, or China will break you into 30 small pieces, break you into big pieces, right? Anyway, India's current situation is just like this. So let's wait and see. Of course there are people saying, hey, Modi called for it like this, so Indian people won't buy gold anymore, and gold might fall. Let's wait and see. Okay, this really reflects the time of the Indian national character. But then, why do I say, even if I even count on the Indian citizens actually being like the South Koreans, being very much for the country, truly listening to the government's words, and listening to the Prime Minister's words, but I still don't believe that gold will fall. Why? You know? Okay, because the Reserve Bank of India has been secretly and continuously accumulating gold. Modi wants the people not to buy it, but the central bank is still at it. The central bank is still accumulating gold. Now, gold already accounts for 17% of India's foreign exchange reserves. What does that mean? In 2020, gold accounted for only 6% of India's foreign exchange reserves. Now it accounts for 17%, having tripled. It tripled in a few years. Let's look again. The Reserve Bank of India is also bringing a large amount of gold back into the country. As of March this year, 2026, 77% of the Reserve Bank of India's gold holdings are stored domestically. Relative to 3 years ago in 2023, it was only 38%. What does this show? It doubled. You understand what this means, right? You know that India has been acting crazy in the past few years, buying gold. Why? The Indian people still feel that they are very smart, right? They are very confident. You have to remember that India is very confident. They always feel that they are very smart, you know? So why does India want to do this? It is because India actually understands. The US might be in trouble, you know? They also feel the US might be in trouble. Of course, firstly, they have no confidence in their own currency. That is, as it should be. That is as it should be. Haha. Secondly, they have no confidence in the US dollar. So now, looking around, the only people they have confidence in is gold. So from this point of view, they are not stupid. They have no other tricks, you know, right? No other tricks. So they want to play for their lives in buying gold these past few years. However, now, they just don't let retail investors buy, but the central bank is still buying. The central bank has not stopped. So then, in that case, it is, don't let the people buy, but the government still has to accumulate. You want the people to be light and watch, right? Of course. It's still that same sentence. This really is the time to look at the national character. If it were Japan or South Korea, they would feel, it is okay, the government is buying. Let's sell our gold to the government, right? We support the country, right? But can the Indian people do that? We will wait and see. But I will tell you this, they surveyed it. What has been the best-selling product in the Indian market for thousands of years? Gold for thousands of years in India. The The product that Indian consumers love the most is gold. I don't know why. Indian people love buying gold. Doesn't that elephant have a saddle on it? Even the saddle is gilded, you know. Build a temple, above the temple, that temple, that temple roof. The temple roof, temple roof. Temple roof is all gilded. Indian people have a kind of, and also those divine statues, like that divine statue with the long elephant trunk, it is gilded, you know, so I don't know why this gold has a kind of, that is big gold chains, loachbacks, what have you, you know, all similar things. They have this hobby, Indian people, they have this hobby. So based on this, I think, even if Modi called on the people not to buy, I still don't think gold will fall. I, on the contrary, think that this might further stimulate the whole world to buy gold. Do you understand what I mean? That is to say, this are just leaving the Indian people aside for a moment. That is to say, after watching this situation, all the other retail investors in the world, you all feel I should buy some gold. You know, is there one more point you've thought about? Of course, I just said it. Their central bank is increasing holdings, retail investors buy, the central bank is increasing holdings. Another thing, India is transporting a large amount of gold back to India domestically. These past few years, as I said, it is continuously transporting it back. When transporting gold back, there is a problem, which is what that is to say, in the gold exchanges in Europe and America, like the New York COMEX, the London gold, right? They all have a problem. You know what that is? Physical gold versus paper gold is 1 to 100 to 130, you know? That is to say, for every gram of physical gold, here might correspond to 100 plus sheets of paper gold floating outside. So India, it is transporting gold back. It originally held this gold in name, but it was probably stored in the New York COMEX or stored in the London vault, right? Or stored in the American vault, right? At that time, when you store it in the London vault or London vault, they can take your gold to go outside and trade paper gold. You understand, right? They can move your gold without you knowing, but go outside and trade paper gold, of course. Now, Trump and Elon Musk, right? They feel that the gold in the American vault actually has people messing around with it from top to bottom, right? They keep saying they want to conduct a re-cleaning of the gold in the American vault, thinking someone is messing around from top to bottom, saying someone is secretly taking the gold away to do other things. Of course, if this thing happens, then I am screwed. Then it is bad. That would be a big deal. My God. That would be a huge harm and blow to credit. Of course, this thing is a conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory. We will put this aside. But regardless, that is to say, even if the physical gold wasn't taken away, but using it to trade paper gold, this is definitely no problem. This is definitely tradable. This is essentially a kind of financial derivative, but the problem is, just when India transports this gold from the New York COMEX or London gold back to its own country, can you still get to trade paper gold? You understand, right? Every ounce of physical gold transported away, transported back to India, you have 100 plus sheets outside that can't find the source. You understand, right? You understand what I mean. You understand what I mean. Have you ever thought about this problem? How great is this pressure on physical gold? Based on this, you think are gold prices rising or falling, right? You think about it again. Okay, that is all the content. Thank you all.